India has end-to-end capabilities in space, makes its own rockets, makes its own satellites, and the application area is also very robust in India. Earlier, the entire space sector was controlled through ISRO or the Department of Space. Recently, the government has, what they say, in a reform process, opened up the space sector. And one of the entities which is looking after the commercial activities for space is New Space India Limited, the commercial arm of the Department of Space. And I have with me Radhakrishnan D. Namaskar.
Namaskar, namaskar.
He is the chairman cum managing director of the New Space India Limited, and a lot of India's or all of India's communication satellites are now owned by New Space India Limited, and some of the newer commercial launches for rockets will also happen through New Space India Limited. And don't forget, the startup sector is also revving up and some say booming. Thanks a lot for speaking to me, Radhakrishnan. How is the commercial activity of space in India? Till now it was you and me as taxpayers paying for it, but is the revenue coming back from space?
Yes, I think I'll be very happy to report to you that the New Space India Limited, once it was created during March 2019, we started with a commercial revenue of almost 350 crores to begin with in the first year of operation. And I'm happy to report in the last 4 to 5 years of operation, we have touched almost 2,500 to 3,000 crores as the revenue for the company.
6 times growth.
Growth of the company that we have seen. And in the process, what we
many private sector companies can boast about that.
Yeah, and what we have done is in the process, we have taken up a lot of very emerging space activities. First and foremost, I think today, if you look at it, we are owning almost 11 communication satellites in orbit, which generates a lot of revenue for the company. The second is the launch services, the providing launch services for international customers on board ISRO's launch vehicle. That is the key takeaway for us. We have been launching satellites on Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which has done almost 50 plus launches. We have launched satellites on LVM-3, as you say, always the Bahubali rocket. So 2 big missions for us, and we are planning many more.
One web launches,
and we are planning many more dedicated commercial launches on LVM-3. And this is the 2 major revenue streams for us. In addition, what we are doing is after the space sector reforms, the government has asked NSIL to invest in building the communication satellite. That means you have your own funding. You need to invest in building satellites, you need to invest in building launch services, and do also the in-orbit maintenance of the satellites. So basically we own and operate the assets. So in this regard, we have done one very important mission, which you may be aware, GSAT 24, which is called GSAT N1, where it is meant primarily for DTH and Tata Play communication DTH services, and Tata Play has been our end customer for that. We launched it on 2023. We are coming up with the second demand-driven mission of NSIL, which is a GSAT 20 high throughput satellite. So quite a heavy and huge capacity meant for broadband applications, and we are planning a launch of this on board US launcher Falcon 9 from SpaceX. And we are also looking at the third demand-driven communication satellite mission, which is called GSAT N3, which is an S-band communication satellite. Again, funding entirely by NSIL for meeting the S-band communication needs of government users. These are the 3 major missions.
What about the launch vehicle?
Yeah.
Because the commercial activities for the launch vehicle are also likely to happen through NSIL.
Exactly.
So let's go through one by one. What is the state on the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which is our workhorse rocket?
Exactly. So you may be aware the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which is primarily which was designed and developed by ISRO, has been realized through Indian industry, yes. But the responsibility of the industry was primarily related to making the systems and subsystems. What we had done as NSIL is we have onboarded the company called HAL and L&T, where HAL was the lead bidder. We have placed order on 5 rockets for them to build entirely by the industry itself. And we are planning the first fully industrialized rocket could be launched by end of this particular year, which is maybe December or beginning of next year. And this is I would say it's a big step, because all along the last 20 to 30 years, the satellites have been fully realized by ISRO through the industry, but now rockets. Now the industry has a responsibility to get hands-on feel on how to realize the entire rocket and route. But for the launching, I think the entire activity will be by by Indian industry. And this is one model. Now, what happened is we are trying to move away from this PSLV model to the next rocket, which is LVM-3.
Which is launch vehicle Mark 3.
Exactly. So we had a limited number of launches, which the government has funded. Now we are thinking the NSIL will fund the realization rocket. So what could be the next logical step to move from placing the order with the industry and asking to realize and give it back to NSIL? We are looking at PPP model, which is a very common model in all civilian application programs, a public-private partnership. So in this regard, we have recently floated a request for qualification where we are trying to onboard the industry and to see that they have the capability not only to realize the rockets, but also do investment. Because, you know, every rocket, Mark, when you look at it, is going to be in the order of something like 500 plus crores each rocket, 500 to 600 crores per rocket. So when you're building something like 5 to 6 rockets every year, it may be of the order of 2,000 to 3,000 crores investment. So NSIL as a company alone may not be able to do that. So we are trying to see a partnership where the industries can also invest money into that and they also become a risk-sharing partner. So this is the model we are trying to go.
So will the technology be transferred from ISRO to the industry?
Yeah, actually this is not a part of the technology transfer, but I would say the know-how of how to realize the various systems and stages like we are doing for PSLV. The same model we will enrich the Indian industry people and to bring up the capability in them to realize the rockets.
Does the world need launch vehicle Mark 3 kind of rockets?
Yes, I think if you look at today, the LVM-3 production which is happening is something like 2 rockets per year. We are trying to ramp it up to something like 4 to 6 rockets per year, primarily with the intention that there is lot of potential for this particular rocket in the international market. You know that there are a lot of constellations that are coming up globally. There is a requirement for launching 4 to 5 ton communication satellite, which is the ideal capability of this particular launcher. So we see a lot of international potential for this particular vehicle as such. And if you look at it globally today, other than a couple of launches, one is the SpaceX of similar class. And then we have the Ariane 6, which has been recently launched by a European company. LVM-3 is the next candidate. So I feel a lot of potential.
And we have a very nice location also. The
Exactly.
location advantage of Sriharikota is next only to Crore. Is that correct?
Exactly. So if you look at the GTO launches, which basically requires the minimum inclination of the orbit, Crore, I think Crore in French Guiana is the #1, and I would say second best launch site for GTO launches is the Sriharikota, which is in India.
Now,
And we are very happy about it also.
yes, it gives us a great advantage. I mean, look at the foresight of people who decided that we should have a launch pad there.
Exactly.
What about the small satellite launch vehicle? And we have a model right behind you of that.
We also actually, you may be aware, when the SSLV was designed by ISRO, the primary objective was to just design, develop it, and then leave it to the commercial operators to market it. Because 2 years, 3 years down the line, when I look at it, a lot of market potential was envisaged for this kind of rocket. Because when somebody has to fly, just imagine somebody has to fly a satellite in a PSLV, something like 1.8 tons has to be launched. But when we have a satellite launch vehicle which has a capability of only 400 to 500 kg, it's easier for the customer to go up in space very quickly.
No waiting time.
No waiting time, and the overall integration time, when I look at it, overall cost of the launcher, at a low cost they get a dedicated launch. So this is a rocket I feel will be the best in the world when it comes to launching small satellites, and we are also putting a lot of effort in seeing that we manufacture a lot of rockets of this kind, especially to meet the small satellite launch service market.
Have we been able to, we've had 3 successful launches
Yes.
of the SSLV. The third launch just took place. Have we been able to sell capacity on the small satellite launch vehicle?
Yes, I think you may be aware the SSLV first flight had a very marginal failure,
Yes.
and we could immediately correct it to bring it back. So after we completed the second development flight, we were able to secure a contract with an Australian agency, a company called Space Machines, who have brought the entire SSLV rocket for launching their 400 kg class of satellite, and in a couple of years we'll be launching that on board SSLV. So I would say this is the first dedicated SSLV launch service contract which NSIL has also secured for this launcher.
Now, what about the other activities? Because you also have earth imaging, you also have weather services, and all of them, somewhere or the other, there is a commercial angle coming to that.
Exactly.
Is NSIL looking at that?
Actually, when it comes to the real commercials of the space business, we feel in our perspective, communication satellite service is the best one in terms of the investment or return investment. Earth observation satellites, we are not really thought about it much, but I think maybe in the years to come we will consider, but right now it is not in our radar doing any big investment on taking up this kind of demand-driven mission for Earth observation missions.
No, but there are demand for imagery.
I know that.
So does that demand for imagery, can that be fulfilled through NSIL or does it still go through ISRO and NRSA?
No, I would say as far as the marketing, commercial marketing of the ISRO-built Earth observation, both optical and radar satellites are concerned. The NSIL has been now vested with the responsibility of marketing this to domestic as well as the international customers. So we'll continue to provide those kind of data sales services to the customer.
But you also do arm army related work, which is to cater to farmers and later to fishermen. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of the, if I look at it in the Common Man's project, like you rightly mentioned, you may be aware there is one technology which was given by Space Application Center, which was basically the MSS transponders, which once that particular unit is fitted in a fishing vessel, will be able to monitor, the fishermen will be able to communicate both voice and message from the boat to the landmass. As far as then other things are, some of the security areas also, when he crosses a kind of a borderline, there will be alerts that will be made available to him. There are some potential fishing zones available, he will be guided to go to that particular area. So in this regard, recently NSIL has taken up a project with the Department of Fisheries, where we have onboarded 3 industries for manufacturing almost 1 lakh MSS terminals. And you would have seen recently, Honorable Prime Minister of India has launched that project in Maharashtra. Yes. So the project is basically undertaken by NSIL as the implementing agency. And we are manufacturing these units through 3 Indian industry partners.
Now, let us also spend a little time talking about the startup sector. There were none a few years ago. Now, some people say there are 100, some people say 200. The minister the other day said 300, whatever the number is. But what is your feeling? Is the startup sector promising in India?
Yeah, I would say the startup sector, the number as you mentioned, after the reforms happened, when the startups started realizing that space sector in India is open, the facility that are available in ISRO will be made available to them, and there is a lot of global market that is being projected by the consulting firms. So I would basically look at the startup as 3 different kind of category of activities. There are some startups who are looking into building small rockets like SSLV, a small satellite launch. There are a couple of companies who are they are doing it. Another category of companies are the one who are trying to build the small satellites, which is a microsatellite. Could be for optical satellite purposes, radar imaging satellite. So this is another domain of activity.
Recently Pixel
also has built, and I would say there are some couple of more companies who are also building a lot of optical satellite, microsatellites. The third category of the startups are the downstream applications, where they are trying to use the EO data for e-commerce application on insurance market or maybe resource planning, agri financing, so many sectors. So these are primarily the 3 sectors where the startups are taking good shape, I would say, which was not a scenario if you look at it 4 to 5 years back. You know, the people were maybe little scared to take up the activity privately, but now there is a lot of opportunity for the startups to grow in this. And I would say in a couple of years, we will start seeing the fruits of the kind of investment that startups are making in this particular sector.
You think they are giving you competition, the startups?
Absolutely not. I think the space market being so big, each has a place for itself, and the kind of capability that exists in the startups. In fact, we'll be very happy to handhold them and give them orders also in case the need so arises in the future. Like I told you that MSS, which was a ground segment, we have been doing it. We're also exploring the option how to onboard the startups for building even the satellites also for us, if there is a requirement from the government users.
Now there are various projections of what is India's share and quantum in the space market, and projections which go up to 2040. As somebody who is chairman cum managing director of New Space India Limited, a commercial arm, what is your projections and what is your understanding of what is the current state of the Indian space market and the projected
market? So if I look at it, I will not again repeat the same story which I think everybody has been talking. India's share in global space economy being 2 to 3%, likely to go to 8 to 9%. That's fine, that story is okay. But I would say from the company perspective, what is a kind of global space economy? And when you say global space economy, especially in the satellite industry, where the money lies more. You know, there is upstream which talks about the satellites and launches, and then there is a downstream segment also. So what we find is a lot of dominance is there in terms of the money that is foreseen in the next 10 years in two major areas. I would say satellite services, especially communication service, not the EO services. The second dominant area is primarily in the ground segment. So what we find is our even line of action of the businesses that we undertake is mostly on the NSIL also I'm seeing the global perspective. There is a lot of market potential seen for communication service, especially broadband and other things. And in the ground segment, almost 40 to 50% of the economy lies there. So we are also trying to move our businesses into the direction where we also naturally provide a lot of communication satellite services. And by building more and more, bringing in more and more satellite services in the country, obviously the downstream area in the ground segment where the people are enabled to make the antennas, chipsets, modems, a lot of manufacturing activity in the ground segment is going to grow. So that is the area we are trying to now slowly move into the ground segment so that we also get a little bit good pie of the actual economy that is being foreseen and projected.
See, in the world we are seeing large constellations coming up. In India, we are still not talking of large constellations. What is the reason behind that? Is it because we are looking at the Indian sector and we can cater through a single communication satellite and we are not looking at the global ecosystem? What is the reason? See, SpaceX, OneWeb, they are talking in thousands of satellites.
Yeah.
Why are we still restricting ourselves to a single communication satellite or 2, 3, 4 and not constellations?
Yeah. So if you look at the constellations, I would say there are the two main constellations which are coming. One is the Starlink, which is primarily for your broadband. Other one was OneWeb. I know they had 700 plus satellites. Basically, they are all global operators. And there is another one that is foreseen is the QPR, which is from Amazon. All broadband applications.
And not forget the Chinese.
Chinese also, exactly. So, but when you say the broadband application, there are two modes. One is you do through either LEO broadband, where the latency is, I think, very low. And the other option is the traditional GEO satellite for broadband applications. I would say we are more into the GEO broadband. There is a debate going on which is superior or which is better, which is cost effective. I think there is a time now, there is a transition that is going to happen. So it's very difficult to predict right now. So right now we are going in a safest path of going for a geo broadband services, which is our thing. And maybe if the dynamics changes in the future, we will look at it how it will shape up for in our context, in the context of NSIL.
Yeah, but don't forget, we also have fiber optic on the ground.
Exactly.
You can never compete with the speeds or with now with 5G, which is equivalent in capacity and bandwidth. Then there will be 6G and 7G and 8G
coming up.
They will give much faster. So I don't know where the constellations are going to get the market.
See, what happens even though you are a global operator, what is also important is, say for example, if you look at the frequency coordination and the capability that we have, it's all domestically controlled. You know, we have the first rights over your country. If I have to be more some other country, you need to have a landing rights, a lot of regulatory aspect. So that is one aspect we need to look at it. I would say we are not really grown to that level where we can become a kind of a global operator, because the market in India itself is huge. If I'm looking at two major market is the broadband VSAT market, other is the DTH market. If I'm able to cater to that requirement itself, I think we should be hands full as far as the company is concerned.
Exciting time for space in India.
Very, very exciting time, especially with the startups coming up. I think there is more participation, more competition coming up. And rather than a kind of a single agencies who are doing it, a lot of activities happening or not only in the upstream but also in the downstream, I think maybe.
See, most people focus on Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, Aditya, the planetary missions, the scientific missions. But the bread and butter lies where you are.
Exactly. So we need to earn the money for our survival and doing the investment. So I think we look more at wherever, like I mentioned, even the Earth observation satellite missions. The day we know that it is going to give enough return on the investment that we are doing, it will not be even thinking twice whether we can go in that direction. But current assessment is the communication services is the best for the return on investment, and obviously the launcher, which is I would say one of the biggest stronghold of ISRO, and we are very fortunate to be commercial arm, and we have all the expertise available to support us. So these are the areas we are going to focus on in the future.
And you think the world will come to us for launching?
Surely, we are very, very ambitious, and it's not only the ambition. I am very sure that the LVM-3 rocket, like PSLV, it has created history of launching more than 400 satellites. Days are not far when LVM-3 will become one of the most sought after launcher in the international community. It is already but I would see that more and more launches happening through LVM-3 in the future, especially in the context of the constellation coming up globally.
See, the government wants that in a Viksit Bharat by 2047, the contribution from the space and space economy should be very high.
Exactly.
Today, almost every part of our lives is touched by space. But do you think NSIL as an entity is ready to contribute towards a Viksit Bharat and be a economy which is capable of handling space technology?
I think I would say we should make all the attempt. It cannot happen overnight. I think slowly and steadily we should move towards that to create more contribution of Indian space economy in the overall global context. So as we have more and more businesses happening, not only through NSIL, I would say more through the startups and some of the industries. Now startups, when I say it's not only the real startups, it's also the Indian private industries. We have more businesses, more activities for them, and more investment coming in, more businesses. So I think that is the way to lead towards 8 to 10% that we are looking at in the future, the next 10 to 20 years. I think surely there is a lot of hope and ambition to meet that particular target for Viksit Bharat.
So NSIL, ISRO, Department of Space, ready to shoulder that responsibility?
Very much, very much. We are very confident of doing that in the coming years.
So that was Radhakrishnan D, Chairman cum Managing Director of New Space India Limited, part of the Department of Space as its commercial arm, saying that it's an exciting time for space in India, and he promises that in the Viksit Bharat model, the space contribution would be high and they would be ready to contribute towards that. At the headquarters of New Space India Limited in Bengaluru, Pallav, Bagla for NDTV.